Hello and welcome to my second vlog, taking on the subject of skill and capacities in speed and agility. On this assignment, I have chosen to analyze the skills of acceleration and 180 degrees change of direction. Diving right into the first skill, we will look at an athlete displaying skill deficiencies in acceleration. What we can start to notice on the video is that he is producing a nice overall body angle relative to the ground. We want the athlete to achieve full triple extension while being stiff from head to toe to facilitate optimal transfer of force to the ground. However, we can also notice how the angle of the swing leg is relatively open at 90 degrees. The consequence of this is seen on this picture, where the open angle of the swing leg results in a suboptimal foot strike in front of the center of mass, creating a negative touchdown to distance. A foot strike in front of the center of mass is going to create braking forces, subsequently compromising the speed of the athlete. As the position of the foot strike is dependent on knee angle on the swing leg, I would have him perform exercises with a focus on closing this angle more. Moving from a simple isometric hold to a more complex dynamic version, I have him focusing on an external cue of squeezing an apple with the knee. I would then try to integrate the movement pattern in an activity more similar to the original acceleration. This is done with a banded two-step burst, where the placement of the band around the shoulders is crucial. It gives him the ability to lean forward without having to catch himself by opening the knee angle of the swing leg. The repositioning of the swing leg then creates a large positive touchdown distance. These technical changes could possibly result in a faster acceleration time. Next up, we will look at some capacity deficiencies in the acceleration exercise. This athlete is showing several signs that he hasn't got a sufficiently high enough rate of force development to produce the necessary horizontally directed impulse to propel his body forward effectively. He's not able to fully triple extend, which could indicate that he lacks high velocity strength near end range of ankle, knee and hip extension. He's also bending from the waist in order to get low, resulting in a marked kyphosis of the thoracic spine. Looking at his foot strike, we see that the lack of rate of force development and high velocity strength results in the creation of horizontal braking forces, expressed by a negative touchdown distance. So, in order to improve this athlete's acceleration, we need to give him exercises facilitating high rates of force development through triple extension. The first exercise we can use for this purpose is a banded wall drill. Once again, I would like to point the attention to the placement of the band. When placing the band around the hip, the elastic tension provides him with the ability to put more force into the ground near end range, as he is working on the lower part of the force velocity curve. Furthermore, the feeling of the band tensioning gives him a kinesthetic cue to push his hips forward to try and achieve triple extension. We can then progress the exercise to one with an even higher focus on explosive triple extension. Once again, the band gives him some extra time to produce force against the ground, resulting in a completely straight body position. In other words, when we distribute the force productions demands over two legs instead of one, and increase the horizontal impulse by prolonging ground contact time, he is able to express a more optimal technique. Lastly, I would like to work on his ability to produce high rates of force development in single leg stance. This is achieved with a one-step burst with a focus on explosively extending the hips, knees and ankle. Over time, I will then slowly progress him away from using bands in the exercises shown, making them more similar to the actual acceleration skill. This will hopefully improve his ability to produce forces at high velocity and increase his rate of force development. Having looked at acceleration, we will now focus on a change of direction skill. Starting out with an athlete with skill deficiencies, one of the things standing out from this video is a very short contact time in the cut. This is achieved using a highly successful braking strategy, emphasizing a posteriorly directed force vector, maximizing horizontal braking forces to reduce momentum. The braking strategy is particularly efficient in the penultimate step, where the foot placement perpendicular to the direction of travel increases the base of support. Furthermore, we know from research that a greater magnitude of horizontal braking forces in the penultimate step compared to the actual cut leg is advantageous in a 180-degree cut. Having reduced his momentum effectively, he is able to display pretty good technique in the cut. He has lowered his center of mass to increase stability, and he has created a low shin angle with a foot strike outside the base of support. If we turn the attention to what he might improve on, he could benefit from an increased upper body lean to the new direction of travel. This would place his center of mass further from the base of support, facilitating a more optimal position for weight acceptance and push-off during the cut. And when he is re-accelerating, he has an incomplete turn of the inside foot to the new direction of travel. This forces him to place the cut leg around the inside leg, resulting in him placing the foot very far lateral from the cut. This is highlighted even more when we look at the cut from a different angle. Here we can clearly see how far lateral he is actually going. So we basically have two skill-related deficiencies we are trying to correct in order to improve this athlete's change of direction performance. The way we are going to accomplish this is by using a constraint-led approach to skill acquisition. I'm going to present two different manipulations of the task for each deficiency, which should constrain the athlete into performing the desired technical corrections. The first two task constraints is designed to correct the incomplete turn of the inside foot. In this first example, I'm using hurdles to make sure that the athlete isn't deviating laterally from the cut. We can see how this forces the athlete to reposition his inside leg foot strike, effectively changing the mechanics of the cut. Task constraint number 2 is in essence doing the same thing. Here the wall is used to force the athlete to reposition his inside leg, resulting in a more linear oriented exit out of the cut. Moving on to the shoulder lean, the first task constraint is holding a mid ball in the opposite side of the cut. This forces the center of mass away from the cut leg, achieving a more medially directed force vector, which could increase performance. This could also be achieved by having the athlete touch the ground with the hand on the opposite side of the cut. In addition to redirecting the center of mass further away from the cut, it also puts the athlete in a lower overall position. As a consequence of this position, the contribution of the hip extensors increases, since they get the opportunity to work eccentrically to produce hip extension torque through the more pronounced degrees of hip flexion. Lastly, we will have a look at how we might resolve capacity deficiencies in the change of direction skill. This athlete is coming into the cut with high velocity, and he is not able to successfully apply a high enough magnitude of braking forces and braking impulse. The result is a very prolonged contact time and huge changes in range of motion around the hip joint in the cut. As mentioned earlier, research has shown that the ability to produce high magnitude of braking forces in the penultimate step is a determinant of 180 degrees change of direction performance. Although producing a good body angle for posteriorly directed force vector, he fails to turn the foot perpendicular to the direction of travel. The consequence of this is seen in this sequence of images, where it is evident that he has to reposition his penultimate step because he failed to decrease his momentum efficiently. The result is a change of direction with good initial mechanics, as shown in this picture. However, because his entry velocity is too high to be managed effectively by his capacity for eccentric force production, he ends up in this position. Here we see a more vertically aligned shin angle and a marked forward bending from the waist, both contributing to inefficient change of direction mechanics. So, the issues we are trying to resolve is a very high contact time and a large range of motion around the hip joint. When trying to change the contact time, we can adopt two different strategies. We can decrease the entry velocity by producing a higher braking impulse during the initial deceleration and the penultimate step by increasing the eccentric rate of force development. Or we can choose to increase the maximal eccentric strength to try and increase the capacity to withstand the high magnitude of braking forces experienced in a cut with a high entry velocity. To improve eccentric rate of force development, we could use deceleration drills where the athlete has to progressively come to a complete stop on a shorter and shorter distance. Here the focus is on rapidly applying braking forces. The reason why I chose to focus on eccentric rate of force development to increase braking impulse is that we don't want to prolong the contact time of each foot strike. Therefore, in order to increase impulse, we have to increase the amount of force we apply during the contact with ground. If we focus on increasing the capacity to withstand high eccentric forces during the change of direction, we would shift our attention to improving maximal eccentric strength of the knee and hip extensors. This has been found to be one of the most important capacities underpinning successful change of direction performance on numerous occasions. One of the favorable adaptations occurring after maximal eccentric training is an increase in fascicle length of the muscles. This changes the length-tensions relationship of the involved musculature, increasing the ability to produce force at long muscle lengths. This is advantageous because, as we can see in this picture, the hip extensors especially has to produce forces at long muscle lengths. Having provided different strategies to resolve skill and capacity deficiencies in movements related to both speed and agility, I would like to close by thanking you for watching this vlog.